My name's Libby,
And my name's Haylie.
and this is An Awful World, our first podcast.
That's right. Where the premise is, if this was a world of Haylies and Libbys, what would the world be?
Yes. And you may be wondering to yourself some other details about this world, other questions we've gotten along the way, like, would there be male Haylies and Libbys?
And there would have to be.
There would have to be, right? Because the world wouldn't go on without men,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
we would only have one generation at that point.
Right. So, how did we come up with this? I don't even know how this really came to be.
I think I asked you one day, who do you think the first person who ate an egg was?
Eggs started this all.
That's right.
Yes. So, in this series, we are going to explore things and ask ourselves, in a world full of Haylies and Libbys, would we have discovered things, come up with things, tried eggs or cow's milk,
Or figured out electricity,
fire,
cartography,
yes. Tectonic plate theory? Probably not.
science in general?
Yeah.
Probably not.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the premise, essentially. Hey, listener, are you in the Indianapolis area looking for photos for an engagement, senior pictures, maybe a new baby? Check out HeyBlondiePhoto.com. Hey Blondie is focused on capturing people from all walks of life, no matter who you are or who you love. They'll take great, warm photos of your family, your loved ones, that you can share for the rest of your life. And then you can say, those came from Hey Blondie. Welcome to An Awful World, but not the kind of awful you're thinking. It's actually a world full of Haylies and Libbys. I'm Libby.
And I'm Haylie.
And we're going to be talking about fire today. In a world full of Haylies and Libbys, would we have discovered fire?
I like to think so.
You know, I would like to think so as well, but I think it's a little ambitious. So Haylie did a little prerequisite research on this, and it's pretty interesting. I think, going off of that, apparently, according to what we know from science, which 1.5 million years ago, lightning occurred and people discovered fire from lightning.
And apparently, they ran towards it to figure out what it was.
And that's my issue.
The thing is, the Haylies of the world, always cold.
Okay, fair. Yes, fair.
And we would do whatever it takes to be warm.
I understand that. I just think I'm not going to be running towards something that looks like that. Like, can you imagine seeing fire for the first time and being like, what is that?
Especially if lightning struck and then it was just like whoosh.
Right.
That would be terrifying. But also, you wouldn't just be curious, but like, what is that?
I mean, I guess I would be a little curious, but would I walk towards it?
This is cave Haylie and Libbys.
That's true.
So
they're more in survival mode, maybe.
Exactly.
So they have to figure out how to like cook food and heat things. And,
yeah.
Like, which leads me to wonder, people before fire, like, did humans just consume raw food?
They would have had to.
Like animals do?
Yeah.
Now? Interesting.
They would have had to have. I think that we would have, I feel like, seen it and been like, oh, bright, shiny, fun.
Pretty.
And then gotten close and been like, ooh, warm. And then touched it and been like, ouch, hot.
Bad.
And I feel like maybe there would have been some caution from there.
For sure.
But we'd still be like, but what is that?
But what is this?
What is that?
How do we harness this power?
Yeah. And so with the research that I did, apparently there was more oxygen in the air at the time. How scientists know this, I don't know. But so apparently fire was A, hotter, but B, occurred more frequently. And so that tells me that it would be easier for us to learn to start one on our own.
Maybe so. Maybe, I don't know how people figured out, like, you know, obviously oxygen makes fire burn. But, like, at what point were we like, let's stick some, like, plants in this and see what happens? Or, like, you know, tree limbs or whatever.
Probably pure curiosity. And then they were probably like, oh my God, this lasted so much longer. I think we could figure that out.
Do you think they were, like, terrified by the like, size of fires?
Probably.
Because here's what I'm imagining in my mind as, like, original fires, which is why I think I would be so scared, is, like, a wildfire that you would see, like, in California.
Yeah.
A raging wildfire. Like, was it like that? I don't know. There's no way we can know.
Right.
But I think that it would be truly terrifying if you saw that much fire coming at you.
See, I was thinking more that it would be kind of like a brush fire where it would kind of just like burn up what was there and then just kind of like leave in its trail and
Smoke
kind of
out.
Yeah, and leave away. And then we'd be like, what was that?
That was weird.
And we'd be like, should we try to make that happen again?
Yeah, maybe. But I'm also thinking, too, that we definitely would get there. I think the Libbys would be very cautious, even though the Haylies wanted to be warm.
Yeah.
But I think we would get there because if there was so much more oxygen in the world, they probably saw it a lot more. Like,
right.
It probably started
occurring.
to be like, okay, this is just a thing that happens.
Right.
We can't explain it, but it's happening everywhere. So it must be fine and not like a sign from God that he's just going to like smite us down.
Right. And also at the time, we would not know who God was.
That's true.
You know, and also I'm sure we would have 1,000 different religions or something with that.
Or something.
Which maybe we'll discuss later.
Yes.
But honestly, we probably would think it was some sort of punishment.
Yes.
At some point.
Because we are scared people.
Yes. Like, don't you ever just stay up late at night because you can't sleep? And you're like, remember that one time I was really rude to someone in the 3rd grade?
Yeah, like they probably hate me to this day.
Yeah, and we would probably think that. We'd be like, remember that one time that I was like, ugh, to that Libby, and now she hates me, and now the world's on fire.
Yes. Yeah. And like, so I was telling you this recently, that for those who are listening, it's April 2024, and there was a recent bridge collapse, which we'll get to architecture and like bridges at some point. But
at some point,
it was the Francis Scott Key Bridge, and I had just reading an F. Scott Fitzgerald book, and so I was researching F. Scott Fitzgerald, and it turns out that F. Scott stands for Francis Scott Key Fitzgerald, and I literally woke up the next day and this bridge had been run into and completely collapsed in the ocean, and I was like, I've somehow caused this. So we definitely are like drawing irrational lines between something that's happening in the outside world and like something we must have done.
I wouldn't say I'm superstitious, but I am a little stitious.
A little stitious. Just a little stitious. So some of Hayleigh's other research, which I think this is so interesting because obviously like science blows my mind. I'm not like, I love science, but I'm not a science person.
Right. Neither of us are.
No.
So Haylies and Libbys, we're going to have a really hard time in the STEM fields in
For
general.
sure. We are definitely both more like left brain people, I think.
100%.
Like tend to be like a little more creative, a little more, although oddly we're both attorneys, so that we're like, we should be more like type A right brain people,
yes.
but we're not.
No.
So.
I mean, I'm a type A person, but like, I don't know science or math.
But we're creative type A people.
Exactly.
So I just think it's so interesting, like science, like how, I mean, just science in general, yes, but like how do we even figure out like when people discovered fire and how do we know that it was around?
Right. So from the articles that I read, that it's still kind of a best guess situation, but based off of finding wood ash and charcoal in caves, they can theorize that around 1.5 million years ago that we discovered or something, with fire, which tells me that at least by then they were bringing it indoors
For
into
sure.
caves.
Yeah.
Which now I feel like that is where we would really be cautious.
Oh, absolutely.
Because to this day, I am still very terrified of fire. And so bringing it in your home, How many? Can a cave catch on fire?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because I think it's, like, mostly rock, right? Like,
That's true.
There's not a lot of, like, foliage that can, like, survive in caves.
But also, don't you think we'd want to make it nice?
I mean, definitely, yes. Which is more of the decorating, the fun sides of the Haylies and Libbys.
Yeah.
Would for sure.
We bring plants inside.
Would we, though? Or would we be so focused on just, like, survival mode? No.
If I can't make it nice, I don't want to live.
I don't want it. That's, yes,
You know?
absolutely.
And I have poor survival instincts. So
Yeah.
I will be more focused on making things pretty.
And that's where I come in, though, with your poor survival instincts, because I feel like I would be like, we're going to keep it safe. Like, I'm the one that's not running towards the fire.
That's
the Haylies
true.
are like, we're cold.
Yeah.
We need to figure
nice this is.
Yes, we need to figure out how to harness this.
Yes.
But also, like, fire is like everything, right? Like, so much of our like daily lives, I feel like, come from fire.
Yeah.
Because it's just like the basis of like, it's how we cook our food.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, eventually, we stopped bringing fires inside, and
We just have heat,
right, heat, electricity, like
warm water,
all kinds of things.
all sorts of things. Now, when we find fire and decide maybe it's not so bad, how do you think we would learn to harness the fire? I do have some ideas.
Do you?
Yes.
Hit me with your ideas, because I'm not sure.
I feel like we would eventually find a fire, keep it going,
That's what I think too.
and we would try to just feed it forever.
Right. If it went out, I'm not sure what we would do other than wait for another lightning storm to strike.
I think that we would at least try to start a fire.
But how would we even,
Right.
like, would we
they, rub sticks together and stuff? But like, maybe someone does it on accident and then is like, oh my God.
like, would we ever understand that friction, like, causes heat, which eventually causes fire?
I mean, I think so because I'm very accident prone. You know how many times I could probably accidentally start a fire?
But like,
if fire was easier to start?
Yeah. I mean, have you ever started a fire before?
No.
I have. And it is very hard. I did it with, like, flint. Like,
Oh.
I was practicing for a local Survivor game with a friend of mine who was going to be competing in it. And so we bought flint and we, like, tested it out. And it's very difficult, like, much more difficult than you would think.
But like, don't you remember in Ice Age?
Of course, go on.
Very scientific. Remember in Ice Age, and he's just like smacking those rocks together, and then he's like trying to draw his own little cave drawing, and then it's just like whoosh.
True.
I feel like I don't know if scientifically that's it, but like I feel like by accident we could start a fire, and then it's just repetition.
I mean, yeah. I
So-
think that at least our brains are very like, if I repeat the conditions of this thing, this one thing, then I'll get the same result.
Yes.
I think we're logical enough beings to be able to figure that out.
I agree. Also, I'm a big hyperfixator. So if that fire went out and we got cold,
You would be
I
doing
would do anything
literally
to figure
anything.
that out. And I don't know if I would just be like dancing around outside hoping for lightning. I don't know if I would just be rubbing sticks together forever, or if I would just be wandering around hoping I would just
Stumble.
find some naturally occurring fire because I didn't know what it was, but we would find it.
We would find it.
I just feel like we are more the like eternal flame.
Oh, absolutely.
people.
Like, let's light it and then protect it. Like, there have to be shifts of people,
yeah.
like, tending to the fire.
Yes, and we would like feed it and,
Yeah.
everything.
It's just so interesting how, like, essential to life fire is. Like,
Exactly.
speaking of Survivor, like, I mean, that's the first thing that people get out there and they think to do is, like, we have to start a fire. Like,
Yeah.
because we have to keep warm, we have to make food, we have to do all of these things that really require heat.
Yes. I just think that, if people in general 1.5 million years ago could figure it out, so could we. Because also, I kind of feel like fire in general is kind of what starts to move us away from other animals.
For sure.
So if we can't figure out fire,
we just stay forever like
a half monkey.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
Like we literally, this podcast would end right here.
Not
if
exist.
We were like, we can't do fire. The end. Bye.
Civilization stopped.
Exactly.
1.5 million years ago.
Exactly.
Because we could not figure out how to get the fire.
We'd be like, you know, we maybe could have turned some rocks into knives. Maybe use some sticks to like do some digging or something, and we would have been like, and that's as far as we got. The end.
Because we cannot stay warm.
Exactly.
And like, okay, I don't know if we've ever thought about this, but like, we're assuming our Haylies and Libbys live where? Like, I mean,
everywhere.
Obviously everywhere. But
Yes.
where do you think that we're like, I mean, there are places that we're going to need fire the most, right?
That's true.
So like, if we're just living in the Midwest, you know, we're going to need it in the winter months. Or like, potentially, you could die.
That's true. Well, let's think about this. If we're starting off as people, didn't people start like, people were here after Pangea, right?
Maybe.
I think so.
I don't know why you're asking me about science.
I know. I'm going to say we were here after Pangea, but I think
sorry, now that you say that, isn't that how people got on separate continents to begin with?
I think I was trying to read this the other day,
Okay.
and then I got distracted. But I want to say that Pangea had already started to break up, but there were still like the land bridges.
Okay, like the Bering Strait.
Yes.
Or something.
Something like that. I was like, I'm pretty sure the word straight, isn't it?
Sixth grade science coming back to me now. I'm pretty sure the word straight was in it.
Okay, so we did not exist during Pangea.
We have our research assistant.
That's right.
Doing some work for us on the side.
So with that, I think, I want to say people started in Africa and then migrated. Did we not?
I have no idea. I have no idea about, like, how we really got where we are.
If middle school science serves me correctly, this is what I remember.
Your middle school did better than mine. Go ahead.
So we would have started in Africa and then we would have moved, which tells me it would have become, I think, more pertinent for us to find fire. But also,
sure.
In the desert, it gets cold at night anyway.
That is true.
So we would need it everywhere.
So, I'm sure that there are parts of Africa that definitely would... I mean, I'm sure there are parts of Africa now that get very cold.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So we would definitely need it. And I think that if Haylies and Libbys are all across the world, we're just going to have to be word of mouth. Like, have you heard of this thing called fire?
What is a fire and why does it, what's the word? Burn. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm just thinking about this now. Like, you got my brain going about, like, continents and, like, the beginning of humanity. And I'm just curious. Do you know, like, the continents are, like, still drifting from each other, right? Like, are we still getting farther from other continents? Do you know?
Well, I don't know. I would assume, but here's the thing. Mm-hmm. If we're getting further away...
We're eventually going to come back together.
Yes, we're going to get closer together.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Are we going to become, like... Pangea 2, Electric Boogaloo. Like, I don't...
Pangea 2, the musical. No,
yes.
The sequel. Interesting. Anyway, I was just thinking about that. So what you're saying is, like, if people started... We did determine that people started in Africa, like the beginning of humanity.
Yes, so that's where Haylies and Libbys would start, too.
Okay. So, like, at one point, the continents were so close to each other still, even though they were separated by, like... Bering Strait or whatever, they would just travel across these land bridges and then just settle on different continents.
Yes.
And then eventually those bridges, like, fell away.
Yes.
And boom, separate continents.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. So Haylies and Libbys would have to be all over the world.
For sure.
Eventually. But we would definitely all start somewhere. and drift apart.
Okay.
I don't know if we're all just going to like be curious and wander away, or if we are going to get annoyed with each other and start our own little groups, kind of a situation, but we will all have to, you know, explore and separate.
So I guess then, just like coming back to fire, it would have had to be before, I mean, not necessarily, but it would have been better if it was like before splitting up to different continents, right? Because it's just like, you can't communicate that to like another group of people, like, or at least I don't think they could have 1.5 million years ago communicated that adequately to another group of people. It's like we all knew it and maybe carried that knowledge with us to different continents.
I think so, because again, like I said, I feel like fire is going to be one of those things that separates us. So if we don't have fire, we can't really continue on past that point. So we would have to have learned it first when there's very few Haylies and Libbys, and then taken that with us wherever we go. And then from there, I'm sure there would be other things that we would learn and could pass on to other people when we met them.
Okay.
And things like that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but I think fire, I have faith in us. I think we could start a fire. I'm not saying let's go in my backyard right now and start a fire.
Right.
But I think given the situation, we could figure out fire and then, you know, grow and evolve from there.
So do you think that we would have understood that, like, the sun is a ball of fire? When do you think we would have figured that out? Would we have figured that out?
No. Oh, not for like 1 million years would we figure that out.
You don't think that we would like correlate, like, when I am standing in the sunshine, I feel warm. When the sun goes away, it's not warm anymore. Do you think that we'd figure that out? Or we'd just be like, this is a different heat source? Because eventually, at some point, people figured out that if they magnify the sun and, like, you know,
that's true,
do it in a really, really small area, it will start a fire.
That's true. Which we would need glass for that.
Right, that's a whole
that's
other.
Gonna come so much later.
Right, we have not even gotten there in that world.
No. You know, that's smart. Maybe we could, because we would be like, the fire is bright like the sun, and it's warm like the sun. So maybe we could have figured that out.
Maybe.
I feel like actually, yeah. I
we
think
would
we're
put that
smart
together.
enough that we could have put that together.
I think so too.
Sooner than later.
I think so too, because I think we would have correlated that, like, feeling of like, wait a minute, it kind of feels the same as like when I'm standing, like, under the sun.
Yes.
As like when I'm standing near a fire. It's like a similar feeling.
Yes.
For sure.
Absolutely.
But just like more magnified with, you know, fire on Earth, obviously, because you're closer to it.
Yes.
But yeah.
Yeah.
So fire. What an awful world.
But a little less awful once we figured out fire.
That's true. Which we think we would. So, once again, this is An Awful World. I'm Libby.
I'm Haylie.
And thank you guys for joining us today. We're like really excited to get this started, and thank you for living in an awful world with us for 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, and we hope that you continue to listen and see if our world stays awful or if it gets a little better.
If you enjoyed hearing about fire and our awful world, we hope that you join us next time. We're going to be talking about the wheel and some basic tools.
Do we think we could figure them out?
You'll have to tune in to find out.
That's right.
Wow.